You know what? The amazing thing of the FIRE approach is that there is no magic number. Also, it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. In this video, I'm going to be giving you an insight into the different types of FIRE, what they are, who they are for, and the key considerations of each. Before I do that, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Yogi, and my wife Seema and I, we both achieved financial independence and retired early before the age of 50. And to celebrate that, we are on this one-year world trip, and that is what brings us to this tip of Hawaii where I'm sitting right now. As an interesting fact, this is the southernmost point of United States. And the other interesting point is that I'm actually sitting on solidified lava that many centuries back was spewed as fire from the volcano here in Hawaii, and that's what's formed these cliffs. Anyways, back to the topic and back to a different fire. So the basic philosophy of FIRE is that you achieve financial independence, and that is a must. Retiring early is an option. And the different types of FIRE is all about giving you that flexibility when to retire, if you should retire, and how you should retire. And those three key types of FIRE are leanFIRE, fatFIRE, and baristaFIRE. There are a few variants of these that I will talk you through during the video. Before we talk on the each of these distinct features of each option, a quick reminder of some of the core principles of FIRE, because they remain the same for all the three types of variants of FIRE. The principles being, principle number one is that you accelerate your savings to achieve financial independence faster. Principle number two is that you have or start building a passive income which meets and starts meeting your expenses. Principle number three is that you have a certain percentage that you limit yourself to withdraw from your total portfolio every year, and that's what's the safe withdrawal rate. Principle number four is that you have a diversified portfolio and not just in one particular asset class or asset. And the last principle, that you have a bucket strategy, that you spread your investments in a way that you distribute the risks over time. Interestingly, for each of these five principles, I've spoken in details in individual videos for which you'll find the link below this particular video. So now back to each of the types of FIRE. So let's start with leanFIRE. leanFIRE is when your passive income is sufficient enough for meeting your base expenses. So base expenses is your house rentals, house payments, your car payments, your children education, your living expenses, and maybe once a year travel. So it's basic, and it doesn't include any of the discretionary expenses and no frills luxury here. The second characteristic is that typically leanFIRE is where your expenses is below the average expenses in the city that you're living in. And the third characteristic is that typically your safe withdrawal rate from your total portfolio is more than 4%. Now, who is this suitable for? So it is suitable for folks who are wanting to retire early at the age of 40 or even in their 30s, because they are tired of the corporate life or the rat race and they want to probably enjoy some nice sun and sea here like I am. It is for folks who are into a minimalistic lifestyle, either right now or have an aspiration to a very minimalistic lifestyle or a frugal lifestyle during their retirement years. It is also for folks who are strong-willed and not only them, but also importantly, their family is strong-willed, that they do not fall into the trap of keeping up appearances. Now, key considerations for the leanFIRE. Consideration number one is, if you choose this particular path, is that you should continue remaining relevant to the industry that you are from, or your skills are always relevant. The reason being is that you should have that flexibility to go back to work in case there is an emergency or a downturn or a financial recession that hits hard. The second consideration that you should keep in mind is that build an emergency fund, because you are in a no-frills situation. You do not want to be in a situation where there is a health scare or a health or some family emergency where you dip into your retirement portfolio. The third consideration is that you should have the right conversation and that right discussion and expectations with your children, because most likely in this particular scenario of leanFIRE, the chances of leaving an inheritance or legacy is, at least financial legacy, is minimal, or the chances become low. And last point is that you need to make sure that you have a good healthcare coverage, either through insurance or the social health care, because that is what hits you harder in the coming years of retirement. So that's about leanFIRE. The next is fatFIRE. fatFIRE is the opposite of leanFIRE, where your passive income not only meets your expenses, base expenses, but also discretionary expenses, gives you enough room for luxury travel or multiple travels during the year. It gives you room for gifts and discretionary spending during your lifetime or retirement years. The second characteristic is that typically your expenses are above the average of the city that you're living in. The third characteristic is that typically your withdrawal rate or your withdrawal percentage every year from your portfolio is less than 3%. Interestingly, there is another version of fatFIRE called obeseFIRE. If you call someone obese nowadays, we're pretty politically incorrect, but if you call someone you're in the obeseFIRE territory, I think it's like a badge of honor, because that means that they've not just made it, but they've got abundant money. And typically in obeseFIRE, the variant over there is that you're withdrawing only maybe 1% or a maximum 2% from your total portfolio, you don't know, not just need to worry about your expenses, but you have so much of excess that you'd probably not know what to do with it. Who is it for? It's for typically the folks who either want to maintain their current lifestyle or even enhance their lifestyle during their retirement year. It is also for folks who've already probably achieved financial independence with this logic of this 4% withdrawal that if they calculate from their portfolio, but they are still working because they are building that additional fund that they end up being in this fatFIRE territory. It is also for folks who are flexible enough to probably move from one high cost of or very high cost of living city to a lower cost of living city. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The key considerations in fatFIRE is, do not fall for the one more year trap. One more year trap means that you've achieved financial independence, you've got enough money that the chance of running out of money likelihood is zero, but you're continuing to work with that one more year and you're on that continuous hamster wheel. So be careful about that. The second is maximize your go-go years. That's what we are doing. That's why and I've done a separate video if you're not aware of the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years, because what you do not want is that by the time you retire, you're already into your slow-go or no-go years, and it's difficult for you to probably hike or do all the stuff that you ever wanted in your life. The other is that this also consideration is that you have to plan the legacy, because most likely in a fatFIRE territory, you will be in a normal scenario, leave something behind, and in a very good scenario, you may actually leave more than the money that you started or retired with. So these are some of the considerations that you have to think about in the fatFIRE territory. The next one is the Barista FIRE. Barista FIRE is where you're partially working, that you've not fully given up by you have a part-time job, or maybe your spouse is having a full-time or even a part-time job. Typically, the Barista FIRE is for folks who have who are still not who have still not decided that if they want to retire and they want to test it out. It is also for folks who probably want to continue working in some form, and maybe not as a corporate job, but they will probably do something as, like the title says, as a barista, or maybe do some consulting gig or some side gig for whatsoever. There is a variant of this which is called post-FIRE. That means that you are having a full-time job, but that full-time job is not the corporate job, but it is, let's say, a low-stress, low-paying job, much more relaxed job. So typically, it's for the folks who are looking for, coasting or on the boundaries of FIRE and continuing to work in some form or the other. The key consideration in this particular variant is that beware that you don't end up with working full-time while you think you're working part-time. Because many times people start saying that, hey, I'm only working 4 hours a day, but that 4 hours a day, preparation to that and detoxing from that is actually causing them 8-hour a day work days. So be aware and be careful of that. The second thing is that also try and make sure that your work-life balance in this one is better than your corporate life, because if the work-life balance is the same, then you are basically working with just labeling yourself that you fired. So these are just a very quick overview of the 3 types of FIRE and the 2 variants that I talked about. Now, the 3 levers, as probably you already heard, that you can pull or you have the flexibility to use to choose the different FIRE options are, one is the location where you live in. That's a very important, as you can see what I talked about during a leanFIRE or fatFIRE, because what could be leanFIRE in New York could be the same amount fatFIRE in New Delhi. So you have to think that is in leanFIRE territory, that are you in a leanFIRE just because you're paying that city tax and being in an expensive city that is causing you there? Similarly, in a fatFIRE territory, that do you want or have that flexibility like Seema and I did, is that we moved from living in very high cost of living cities to now moving to a low cost of living city with a similar quality of life, and actually I think a bit better quality of life in my understanding. And that gives us so much flexibility. So that location is one lever that you think about or you can pull. The second lever is lifestyle, because financial independence and retiring early has a lot to do with lifestyle. So if you choose a very luxurious lifestyle, and if you have a desire to keep up appearances, or maybe have a desire to have all the toys of boats and sports cars, etc., the chances are that you'll keep working for them to keep gathering them. On the other hand, if you have a minimalistic lifestyle, you may actually think of retiring and do leanFIRE even now maybe. Interestingly, I have quite a few of my colleagues who I think are in obese FIRE territory even, or at least the senior folks who I used to work with or work for, but they still have that one more year and they keep working for that next toy or the next boat. So you have to be careful about that. So that's the second thing. And the third is the nature of work that you continue or want to continue doing. So some folks can continue, like in the Barista FIRE or even in Coast FIRE, doing full-time or part-time job, but the nature of job changes. And some folks like me, I've probably as a hobby, I do this channel, but other than that, I'm not doing any consulting gig or any other assignment for that matter. So these are the 3 levers that you can pull and use it to your advantage and see how and when and if you would like to fire. So I hope this video was helpful and it gives you some insight on the different types of fire. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or comment in the comment section of this video. In any case, do like and subscribe. Till the next video and a different location, goodbye, and as it says in Hawaii, aloha and mahalo.